Welcome to Radio Vision Network. This is Carole Moore with Around Town with Carole. And today we are lucky enough to have my husband, the historian, William Moore. He'll be with us today. And he's helping me explain some of the wonderful aspects of a post-Civil War hotel that we have found and have spent our anniversaries in for almost a decade. So, Bill, tell us about Mr. Sawyer, who built the hotel.
Mr. Sawyer was born Henry Washington Sager, which in German means sawman. He was born on a farm in upstate Pennsylvania, and as a teenager decided apparently that the farm was not for him. He was very adept at woodworking. He had a mechanical bent, and the lure of America's first seaside resort, America's premier seaside resort, Cape May, drew him. And he went to Cape May as a teenager, found employment there, and within a few years found the love of his life, the daughter of a prominent citizen whom, before it was called Cape May Point, it was called Eldridge. He married the daughter of Mr. Eldridge. And in the first year of their marriage, he built a house, and within 2 years, apparently the house was built so well and his reputation as a craftsman preceded him that he sold the house for twice what it cost him to build. Okay, so you see the beginnings there of an entrepreneur. Well, by that time, the Civil War was looming large in the 1850s. Cape May was experiencing a boom of sorts. Remember that Cape May is below the Mason-Dixon line. So many of the prominent Southern families from Virginia and the Carolinas traveled annually to Cape May to vacation by the seaside. Okay, remember it was a little bit north, away from the miasmas of the southern swamps and forests that they had to travel through to get to the coast in the south. And Cape May had been developed. By that time, railroads were pushing to Cape May, so it was easier to get to. They could travel by steamer, then they could take the train, then they could take a boat. It made an easier ride. Well, war clouds loomed and the war began. Telegraph news came that Fort Sumter had fallen. Henry Sawyer was a very, very patriotic American. Okay, and he was among the first to volunteer. The wartime governor of New Jersey, Governor Olden, Henry went right to Trenton, right to the governor's office, and there were no New Jersey regiments yet raised. President Lincoln had called for 75,000 volunteers, and Henry Sawyer was among the first. Governor Olden sent him to Washington as his personal messenger, emissary, if you will. Okay, what do you need? How can New Jersey become involved? Secretary, and he was sent right to Secretary of War Stanton. Well, he was a man of action, and no New Jersey regiments had been formed. The first Pennsylvania volunteer regiment that came through Washington was the 25th Pennsylvania Volunteers, and Henry Sawyer joined the 25th Pennsylvania Volunteers.
So he didn't find, no unit was
No
available
New Jersey
for New
regiments
Jersey.
had been raised yet, so he had to get in the thick of things, so off he went. Within a year, he was discharged as a sergeant. He enlisted as a private. Within a year, he was discharged as sergeant. And within 2 months, he had joined the 1st Regiment of the New Jersey Volunteer Cavalry, the 1st New Jersey.
The cavalry then, now that's something he was very partial to when he lived on the farm. He loved the horses.
Yes, he did, yes. So it was natural and perfect. And the 1st New Jersey Cavalry was in the thick of things. And in 1863, the 1st New Jersey Cavalry was in the thick of things at the Battle of Brandy Station. Brandy Station was the largest cavalry battle that was ever fought on North American soil. 20,000 plus cavalry troopers on both sides. Can imagine the confusion, the mayhem, the carnage. You had 20,000 plus horses, you had troopers with sabers. You can imagine, you've seen in the field when horses butt each other and kick at each other. Imagine 20,000 milling around, men shooting at each other with carbines, men hacking at each other with sabers. The colonel of the 1st New Jersey fell mortally wounded. The lieutenant colonel of the 1st New Jersey fell mortally wounded. The captain, Henry Sawyer, fell apparently mortally wounded. He was shot 2 times, once in the leg and once in the head, and was left for dead on the battlefield.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, our captain's gone. The 1st New Jersey fought on. The next day, Sawyer still lay on the battlefield, and he was discovered by a Confederate burial detail. He was alive. He was taken to a Confederate hospital. He was attended to, and as he recovered, he was sent to the notorious Libby Prison in Richmond.
Oh, wow.
Where he and other men that he knew languished in the prison. This was a hot, hot summer, and Libby Prison wasn't a resort like Cape May. So conditions were terrible, not by design, but because of the overcrowded conditions. There were simply no provisions for the number of prisoners that were taken on both sides. So you didn't have the sanitary conditions. Well, within a few weeks or a month or so, all of the officers from Libby Prison were taken out and lined up, and they thought, well, good, we're going to be exchanged, because that early in the war there was still a prisoner exchange, and general officers were regularly captured and exchanged. So here we go, we're going to be exchanged. Well, no, it was a little bit more serious than that. They were to draw straws by lots, and 2 of the officers were to be executed by the Confederates. Well, they hadn't done anything wrong. Why are we going to be executed? Well, apparently a Union officer had captured some Confederate officers and had 2 of them shot as spies. So this was to be in retaliation for this, basically ignoring the rules of war.
Well, hold
Okay.
that thought for right now. And we're going to go to a break right now here at Radio Vision Network. Come on back and let's hear the story of Mr. Sawyer and how he built the Cape May Hotel that's called the Chalfonte. We'll be right back after this message.
Today's show is sponsored by Hargrove Demolition, your demolition experts. Hargrove is a family-owned and operated business right here in the southern New Jersey area, bringing you 45 years of demolition expertise. Hargrove has all your demolition needs, from emergency demolition service to demolition equipment rental. Hargrove is one of the state-approved recycling facilities right here in the southern New Jersey area. No job is too big or too small for Hargrove Demolition. Contact them today at one of their 3 locations.
When it's time for Jersey Mike's to give a sub some sizzle, this is the way. The way it's always been. The way it always should be. The way it always will be. Because that's just the way it's supposed to be. Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above.
If you haven't been to Speed Raceway, what are you waiting for? You want to live fast? You want to make every second count? Then grab the family. Round up the guys. Speed Raceway is 100,000 square feet of excitement, whether you're a kid or a kid at heart. Speed Raceway is the place for endless fun all summer long. Log on to speedraceway.com or just get here now.
When we make Beyond Natural dry dog and cat foods, we start with real meat as the first ingredient. We leave out corn, wheat, and soy. And we own where our dry food is made. 100%. Can other brands say all that? for nutrition you can trust and your pet will enjoy. Does your food go beyond? Learn more at purinabeyond.com.
Extra Innings is the nation's premier indoor baseball and softball training center, featuring indoor batting cages, 7 multi-use tunnels, and training rooms. Extra Innings can provide professional instruction, private and group lessons, and the best year-round clinics. Along with a nationally recognized pro shop that features the latest and widest selection of equipment and apparel, our experienced staff can provide you with the right instruction and help you find the best equipment for your ability and budget. Extra Innings, where the game never ends.
Today's show has been sponsored by More Than Gifts. Come see our new location in Marlton, New Jersey. Not just gifts, but more.
We're back here at Radio Vision Network. This is Around Town with Carole. I'm Carole Moore, and I'm honored to have my husband, the historian William Moore, here to talk about Colonel Sawyer, who built the Cape May post-Civil War hotel. And Bill was telling us some of the adventures of the war hero, Colonel Sawyers. Please continue.
Okay, back to what we were talking about. Sawyer, remember, had been left for dead on the battlefield. He was discovered the next day by a Confederate burial detail. He was taken to a field hospital where he was patched up, as you will, and as he recovered, he was sent to Libby Prison. Libby Prison was quite a notorious place, and they languished there for weeks and months, and one day they were taken out of the prison by the commandant of the prison. This was in Richmond, Virginia, and they thought, oh great, we're going to be paroled, we're going to be exchanged, because at this time of the war there was still prisoner exchange between the North and the South, and officers especially were regularly exchanged. Well, it was a lot grimmer than that. Come to find out that 2 Confederate officers had been captured by the Union, and someone in the field, I haven't discovered who the man's name was yet, but I'm still working on that, had them executed, had them shot as spies. Well, this wasn't quite the rules of war, and it wasn't the way the war had gone so far in the Civil War. It was still somewhat of a gentleman's war, if you will. Well, these officers were to draw lots for 2 of their number to be taken out and executed by the Confederates in retaliation for the execution of 2 of their officers. Well, the lots fell to Henry Sawyer and his friend in the prison. They drew the lots, so they were to be executed. Well, they had some time. It wasn't to be an immediate execution, so he asked if he could write letters and things like that, and he did. He wrote a letter to his wife. Now remember, Richmond's not that far from the north. It's not that far south of Washington, so it didn't take days and days. Probably those letters went by courier, and they got there pretty quick. And Sawyer's wife got in touch with the authorities, and General Halleck, you remember him as the overall commander of Union forces. General Halleck got involved. General Halleck sent a communication to the Confederates that if you do this, we're going to retaliate. And lo and behold, they looked around, and who did they have but Rooney Lee? Robert E. Lee, the commander of the Army of Northern Virginia. They had captured Rooney Lee, I believe also at the Battle of Brandy Station. So it was Robert E. Lee's son.
Oh, wow.
So now we had a little bargaining chip.
Oh.
And Lincoln got involved, but the communications back and forth, if you hang Sawyer and this other officer, then guess who else is going to be hung? Rooney Lee. So eventually, after weeks and weeks of back and forth negotiations, and sort of like a poker game or a game of bluff, you know, let's see who will flinch first, there really wasn't any flinching. Both sides agreed, okay, we'll exchange 2 for 2. So here was Rooney Lee, okay, son of the Confederates' most prominent general, being exchanged for Henry Sawyer.
Wow.
Henry Sawyer had moved up in the world, okay? Remember, he was a Pennsylvania farm boy. He went to the lights of America's premier seaside resort. He had been wounded several times in battle. Earlier in the war, before Brandy Station, he had a horse shot out from under him. The horse fell on his leg and severely damaged the leg. The reports don't say that it was broken, but I imagine it was. Well, he suffered from that the rest of his life. He walked with a limp.
And I saw also in some of the pictures that he always had a cane.
Yeah, so he had been injured. So now he's exchanged. The war progresses and he is promoted to colonel by war's end, and he was in charge of cavalry in the defense of Washington. After the war, he is sent home. Not only, now let's look back. Before the war, he had married the daughter of one of the most prominent people in Cape May, the man whose name had been given to what today is called Cape May Point. He had become a builder in his own right, had built houses and sold them. He came home after the war, and there was still a building boom of sorts going on. Hotels, boarding houses were being built. Sawyer ran one of those hotels and boarding houses. And while running that, he got the idea for the Chalfonte. He contacted one of the most prominent architects and builders in Philadelphia and had the Chalfonte constructed. Now, I find it interesting that the Chalfonte was constructed in two separate sections.
Two
One
sections.
section was built, and then the second section was built, and then they were joined in the center.
Okay, so
So you had by shortly after the war in the 1870s, within the first decade after the war, you had the appearance of the Chalfonte. Basically the front appearance as it is today. There were extensions on the side where the dining room is now, and the side was extended further out, the street that's perpendicular to Howard Street. So that's a little bit different, but the basic look, the exterior look of the Chalfonte is as it was in Captain, or at the end of the war, Colonel Henry Sawyer's vision, and he was the first owner.
Wow.
Now, getting back to the limp, okay, you've got one of the most prominent men in town. You've got a genuine war hero, and people are reminded, no, he didn't wave his own flag and say, look at me, but people are reminded every day by this prominent citizen who walks with a limp and a cane. Who's that gentleman? That's Henry Sawyer, war hero, okay? One of New Jersey's prominent war heroes. He also had to be quite an entrepreneur on his own, because he did more advertising for his business than anybody else in Cape May. And if you look in the book that's done on the Chalfonte, there is a picture of one of those early advertisements. Henry Sawyer realized early on the value of advertising.
Publicity, publicity,
Yes,
publicity.
yes.
Wow. And so the hotel is built, and Henry Sawyer, am I saying Henry, right?
Yes.
Colonel Sawyer built the hotel, and we have been fortunate enough to go down for our wedding anniversary in Cape May, and it is a respite for us. We have a very busy life at home with the bed and breakfast and the cafe and with the farm animals here at Whitebriar. And so we just shut everything down and have our vet tech take care of the animals, and we go down for a weekend at the Chalfonte Hotel. And to me, it is like leaving the present day, 2016, and going back to the 1870s, because the hotel is exactly as it was at that time. Yes, they have brand new mattresses on the beds, and yes, they have recently added air conditioning and new bathrooms to some of the rooms, but we always ask for one of the original rooms. The original rooms are with hardwood floor and a sisal rug. That's a seagrass woven into a rug that any wet feet from the beach, any sand doesn't bother. And again, the bureaus are all 1865 vintage, Victorian and post-Victorian. In every room, we love it, there is a sink, and in many places it's the original sink, works perfectly. They've restored it to what it is. So it's, for me and for us, it's kind of like going back in time. But we will be back after we take another commercial here at Radio Vision Network. And this is Around Town with Carole. We're talking about the Chalfonte Hotel in Cape May, New Jersey. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sub some sizzle. This is the way. The way it's always been. The way it always should be. The way it always will be. Because that's just the way it's supposed to be. Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above.
Simply Gents, located in Marlton, New Jersey, takes care of all your grooming needs, including haircuts, straight razor shaves, massages, facials, manicures, pedicures, and waxing. To find more information or book an appointment, visit us online at www.simplygents.com. The secret weapon of a well-groomed man, Simply Gents.
If you haven't been to Speed Raceway, what are you waiting for? You want to live fast? You want to make every second count? Then grab the family. Round up the guys. Speed Raceway is 100,000 square feet of excitement, whether you're a kid or a kid at heart. Speed Raceway is the place for endless fun all summer long. Log on to speedraceway.com or just get here now.
When it's time for Jersey Mike's to make a really great sub, this is what we do. It's what we've been doing. It's what we've always done. It's what we'll always do. So what are you doing? Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above.
Today's show was brought to you by Alicia Kelly of White Horse RV Center in Williamstown, New Jersey. Alicia is your RV expert. Contact Alicia at alicia@whitehorserv.com or give her a call at 856-262-1717, extension 203. When you think of RV, think Alicia Kelly.
Today's show has been sponsored by Farmers Insurance in Voorhees, New Jersey. To protect your assets and the people you love, call Mike Skoranek, your local Farmers Insurance agent, at 856-336-2553.
We are farmers. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum.
And welcome back to Radio Vision Network. We're here with Around Town with Carole. I'm Carole Moore. And I have my husband, William Moore, the historian, with me today, and we're talking about the Chalfonte Hotel. And I was saying that when we leave Edgewater Park to go to Cape May, it's about an hour and a half ride, and when we get down there, it's like time has stood still, and that we're in the 1870s, because the building, with all its beautiful gingerbread and woodworking and its double doors, and its beautiful accoutrements that make it seem like it's in the 1870s. It's just like leaving home and forgetting about everything else in the local business world that we live in. So the rooms are, again, very stark. In other words, they're stark to 1970s perfect, but if you were thinking of modern accoutrements, it doesn't have them. It has the old-fashioned sink in the room. Now, as far as bathrooms, we request some of the original rooms, and we can actually go down the hallway to the bathrooms. And the bathrooms are totally modern. Everything it works very well. Beautiful hot water, good water pressure, and everything in the bathrooms in the hallway. And then, lo and behold, we can go downstairs into the breakfast, which Bill's going to tell you about the breakfast because he waits all year for this southern fried breakfast that we have. So tell us about the breakfast and the Magnolia Room down there.
Well, I'm not a breakfast eater, but this breakfast is the breakfast that you travel long distances for. Not a breakfast to die for, but it is superb. Okay, and that's due to the ladies in the kitchen, which some of the ladies have been there 5, 6, 7 decades. Yes, that's right, 5, 6, 7 decades. And their heritage is Southern. The early workers from the hotel were brought up from Virginia and the Carolinas. Okay, and interestingly enough, Sawyer was quite a successful hotel man. He died, and within 20 years, the hotel had passed to its third owner. Okay, the third owner was the daughter of a Confederate. Now, ironic as it is, Sawyer fought for the North, but you had the Southern heritage in Cape May. So the third owner brought the hotel back to its prominence and continued it. Her family owned the hotel for about 70 years afterwards.
Wow.
The breakfast, when you eat that breakfast, you are satisfied, the atmosphere is beautiful. You're not eating lunch, and lunch is my favorite meal of the day, but you're not eating lunch.
And the room, the Magnolia Room, what was that originally used for? It was so
ballroom.
large. A ballroom.
That was a ballroom. But getting back to what you were saying earlier about the ambience, you can sit on that porch, especially as the sun drops, especially as it becomes twilight. Most of the vehicular traffic, the modern vehicular traffic, stops because people are looking for places to park, because remember, they're a bed and breakfast, and parking is at a premium, so they want a spot close to their bed and breakfast. We sat, and I think you'll remember the night, we sat on the porch one evening, and it's twilight, look down the street, and here come two people in period dress. And you have the clip-clop of the horses with the carriages going around taking tours, and you think, okay. Then you think, all right, is this a time warp? You know, we've seen too much television and too many da-da-da-da-da type things. And here comes not two, but here comes more people. Look closely when they came. No, that's not Civil War period, it's later. Okay, looks like Edwardian, which was the first decade of the 1900s. Well, lo and behold, here they are, they're coming to the Chalfonte because there was an Edwardian dance contest or dance night in the Magnolia Room in the ballroom. So you sat there, now you can hear the strains of the old-fashioned music. You see these people coming and going, they're on the porch. It was as if you were transported back in time. And Cape May is such a historic town. Remember, presidents visited there. Ulysses S. Grant, the victorious general of the North, was elected president. The centennial year of 1876, Ulysses S. Grant was president of the United States. So things were looking up for the seaside resort of Cape May.
And Cape May is a wonderful historic town. And if you walk, I think we walked, 5 blocks away from Cape May, from the hotel. And we're then in the center of the shopping district where you can pick up a trolley ride. In previous, we've taken the historic trolley rides. But this particular time, since it's close to Halloween, we took the, what was it called, trolley?
The Mayhem.
Oh,
Cape Mayhem
Cape
trolley.
Mayhem trolley. And we heard all the spooky stories about what had gone on in the seaside town of Cape May. But you can also pick up a horse. a horse and a beautifully decorated wagons. The carriages are decorated with flowers, and the drivers are in period dress. It just makes you really feel that you went back in time. But you have all of the restaurants. There are fabulous restaurants. The Lobster House is where we always go for dinner on Saturday night.
Premier seafood restaurant on the southern New Jersey coast, yes. And it sits right on the waterfront, right on the little harbor there, and you can see the commercial boats come in and out. You can see private, big game fishing boats come back in, and you look and they're flying. Okay, a marlin flag, they route 60 miles offshore.
So if they fly a marlin flag, that means they got one?
Yes,
okay.
Or at least they hooked one and they may have tagged it and released it.
And so that's the Lobster House, but there are plenty of pizza parlors and local places, lots of places right there. And of course the Chalfonte is only 3 blocks from the ocean. So one year we went and we asked for one of the old-fashioned rooms, and of course there was no air conditioning. There's a ceiling fan, but no air conditioning. And several other couples we were supposed to go with said, "Oh no, I can't go, there's no air conditioning." I said, "Are you kidding? Every time we go in the middle of July, we have to put blankets on the bed at night because you're at the ocean. You have the ocean breeze, and there are windows not only in your room, but there's a double door that you have to the hallway. And the breezes go right across your room into the hallway. Your door has a double door. One is a louvered door, which is very old-fashioned, very southern, and one is your security door. So you just leave your security door open and you put a hook and eye on your louvered door like they do down south, and the breezes just wave right through, and you actually need a blanket in the middle of the summer. The other thing that I wanted to mention is maybe it's a little known secret, but there is a cupola on the 4th floor. And for those of us who know, there is a staircase from the 3rd floor to the 4th floor, and it's what's called a widow's walk. A widow's walk was a time period when if your husband went out to sea and didn't come back for a couple years, you didn't know whether he was dead or whether he was alive. But you were still not allowed to go out into public because you were now the widow, okay? Now, fortunately, some of the husbands came back, but they came back only to find their wife remarried to somebody else because they had been away so long and had not sent communication because it was so difficult in those days. So the widow's walk is up there, and you can go up to the 4th floor and sit and have your drink or just sit there and watch the city. You can see all around the city of Cape May from the widow's walk, or the cupola, whichever you want to call it. And at night, when you look outside, the widow's walk is all filled with twinkle lights. And as you sit in the widow's, there's benches up there, and as you sit there, you can look over the city and see it go from sunset right on to twinkle lights of all the restaurants and the hotels and the bed and breakfasts all have their lights on and welcoming visitors to the historic seaside of Cape May, New Jersey. And in particular, you can go modern to one of their lovely hotels, or you can go post-Civil War to the Chalfonte Hotel. Now, the one thing I wanted to say was all that gingerbread, that's the bric-a-brac, the hand-carved wood and tooling that is around all the porches that you see in all the pictures. That is tremendous in maintenance. Well, in the Victorian times, it was very reasonable to have that done, but as you have to scrape it and paint it every couple years, it is very tedious and it costs a lot of money to have repair. So very fortunately, we have a couple architectural schools that come in the fall that help the Chalfonte keep her sparkly gingerbread white and shiny and help with the maintenance. So if you're a volunteer and you want to think of something really fun to do, give them a call down the Chalfonte and find out about their volunteer programs. Scraping and painting is one thing you can do, but they also have volunteers that help strip the beds for the winter because there are quite a few beds to be stripped, and it's just a wonderful place to visit. Anything else you want to wind up with, Bill?
Well, I think, again, I want to emphasize the fact that I would not at all be surprised if we walked into the Magnolia Room and there were people in Civil War or post-Civil War dress, and I wouldn't be, oh wow, look at that. It would be something that you would think natural.
It'd
I wouldn't
fit
be
right in.
surprised if I walked downstairs and there sitting on the porch were ladies dressed in the attire of the early decade of the 1900s.
And
Wouldn't be at all surprised.
don't forget they also do dinner. Dinner is also fabulous. Their breakfast serves with fried fish as well as your regular cereals and your fruit bar. They even make their own yogurt down there. What else? There's a waffle bar as well as the juice bar. Everything and the buffet for the breakfast is wonderful. Now, in the evening, unless there's a wedding, now we didn't get dinner this past Saturday because they're booked up for weddings. Every bride wants to have her wedding at the Chalfonte Hotel. I think they're probably booked up a couple years in advance for every Saturday. But what they serve on the dinner meal is fabulous. They have the famous Chalfonte Hotel fried chicken, as well as an entire array of other meals that you can pick and choose from. So it really only takes an hour and a half from Edgewater Park, New Jersey, where we live, to travel back in time to the 1870s and take your luggage into the Chalfonte Hotel and give them a call. They're on the internet, and just look up Chalfonte Hotel, Cape May, New Jersey, and you should be able to see it from there. And pretty much
you can admire Henry Sawyer's dream.
Oh, I forgot to say there is a bar at the end. What is that called?
Prince Edward?
The Prince and Prince Edward. They have a Prince Edward Tavern right in the hotel.
It's a bar.
It's a bar, and what it really is really cool because the wide porches that encompass the entire building have now been extended so that they are the tavern that you can go in and get your drinks, and they'll actually deliver them to the room. So thank you, Bill, for helping me with this segment on the history of the Chalfonte Hotel. For the rest of you out there, this is Radio Vision Network, Around Town with Carole. And if you have an opportunity, give the Chalfonte Hotel a call and tell them you saw all about the history of the Chalfonte on Radio Vision Network. Carole Moore here from Around Town with Carole, and we'll see you next time.
Today's show is sponsored by Hargrove Demolition, your demolition experts. Hargrove is a family-owned and operated business right here in the southern New Jersey area, bringing you 45 years of demolition expertise. Hargrove has all your demolition needs, from emergency demolition service to demolition equipment rental. Hargrove is one of the state-approved recycling facilities right here in the southern New Jersey area. No job is too big or too small for Hargrove Demolition. Contact them today at one of their 3 locations.
When it's time for Jersey Mike's to give a sub some sizzle, this is the way.